There is a very specific type of corporate cruelty that happens when a company actively convinces you that you have a permanent future with them, only to pull the rug out from under your entire life without a single warning. This job only lasted 3 months, but in that short time, I went from a welcoming bagel party on day one to looking for permanent apartments and filing paperwork for a pet to getting a cold phone call telling me, do not come back. You are not welcome here. Stage Rose, the Garden State Parkway, and the nomadic life. The process started as a total whirlwind. The interview was a single video call with a main manager and a panel of silent people on the side, and I got the job offer a couple of days later. But the logistics were an absolute nightmare. On paper, the commute from my house was long, and it required driving on the Garden State Parkway. Anyone who knows that highway knows it is horribly, brutally designed. Every single Friday, without fail, there was a guaranteed car crash that would completely bottleneck the road, trapping you 4 exits behind your destination in a dead standstill. To protect my job, I completely upended my life. I had worked second shift my entire career, but I forced myself to wake up at 7 a.m. every single day to be at the lab by 8 a.m. Because the commute from home was so unstable, I lived a completely nomadic lifestyle during the week. I'd rent an Airbnb one week, a hotel room the next, constantly living out of a suitcase just to bypass that horrible stretch of the highway. Even from the hotels, it was a 26-minute drive, but I made it work. I was handling the chaos, steamrolling the testing, and pushing out the products they needed. The $30 per hour, blank slate myth. Day one felt amazing. They threw me a welcome party with bagels, gave me my own desk, and a month in, my manager explicitly told me to apply for a permanent full-time position. She was a stellar leader, but right after she gave me the green light, she left the company, leaving a massive leadership vacuum that a higher manager from another department had to fill. But looking back, the root of the problem started with how they hired me. The day-to-day testing in this lab was incredibly easy. Honestly, it was entry-level work that you could train a fresh college graduate to do in a single week. For a new grad, a lab like this usually pays around $22 to $24 an hour. But they offered me $30 an hour because they wanted someone with my 3 years of analytical experience. Here is what these companies don't understand. When you hire someone with experience, they are no longer a blank slate. 3 years ago, at my first pharmaceutical job, which was run pretty poorly, I was a blank slate, and I accumulated specific working habits and tendencies over years on the bench. You can't expect an experienced analyst to change those deep-seated habits overnight if you don't communicate with them. If you want a blank slate, you can mold exactly how you want. Hire a rookie. If you pay a premium for experience, you have to realize we come with our own workflow. The two-faced room and the animal dream. Because my first manager had told me to apply full-time, I genuinely believed I was valued. As a level 2 chemist coming in, I felt so incredibly lucky to find this job and be welcomed like that. I trusted the green light. I started hunting for apartments near the lab so I could stop bouncing between hotels. I looked at this one completely trash, rundown building under renovation. The only good thing about it was a tiny convenience store in the basement with insanely marked up snacks. So I passed. Instead, I found a small room in a shared luxury apartment. It was pricey at $1,600 a month, but I figured it was worth it for a permanent career. The best part? This was going to be the first time in my life I was finally allowed to have a pet. In my regular living situation, everyone has severe allergies, so a pet was never an option. I went through the entire grueling process of getting the legal paperwork completely approved to adopt an emotional support cat for this new place. Everything was lined up. My future felt completely locked down. The the too nice environment and the corporate box. But looking back, the whole environment was kind of fishy from the start. Everyone there was super nice, like almost to the point where it's scary. It felt completely artificial. I quickly realized they didn't want my experience. They wanted to lock me in a rigid micromanaged box. I constantly felt like someone was lurking over my shoulder, watching how I moved, and the training boundaries were a complete trap. They told me explicitly I could use my phone for music when it was quiet. Because I don't want to listen to music all day, I put a movie on in the background during a routine test where I had to sit in a corner and wait forever for heated chemicals to change color. A manager from another department called me out, and I immediately adjusted and stopped. Same with the gloves. I literally asked management if I could keep my gloves off for the green, safe sticker containers for better dexterity, and they told me, yeah, you're safe. I read their protocols, but these specific tiny details weren't even specified in their safety guidelines. The drop of the mask and the Blindside. The real trap snapped shut during a single interaction with a coworker who played the overly nice character every day, but secretly viewed herself as my superior. I was preparing a test using alcohol as a raw material. I told her straight up, hey, just so you know, I have 3 years of prior experience handling this specific raw material, so I know how to manage it safely. Because the analytical balance was located completely outside of the fume hood, I didn't see the need to physically drag a sensitive, calibrated balance into the hood just to weigh a routine material I had handled 1,000 times. It was an unnecessary disruption to the workflow. The second I communicated my experience, her nice mask completely dropped. She gave me the absolute nastiest look I have ever seen in my life. A look of pure, deep-seated hostility that basically said, "You just effed up." Less than a week after that look, my phone rings. It's the recruiter. Do not come back to the lab. You are not welcome back. That coworker ran straight to our overworked proxy manager and weaponized that conversation to get me fired over technicalities like leaving a solution in an instrument overnight to save calibration time for the next morning. The hard reality? They don't give a fuck about you. That phone call was the exact moment something permanently clicked in my brain. It was a brutal wake-up call to the reality of corporate life. Let me tell you something. The people you work with do not give a fuck about you. They don't give a single flying fuck. If you somehow jeopardize their job or their ego in any way, they will throw you under the bus faster than anything. They will just chuck you right in there, laugh about it after the fact, and that will be it. It is disgusting how two-faced people are. To my face, this company was the absolute nicest, warmest environment. But the second I stepped out of their little box, they destroyed my livelihood without a second thought. Because of their lie, I actually lost a massive amount of money working there. I had to cancel that luxury apartment, which cost me a $1,000 deposit that I fought for but never got back. I had to call Airbnb right after getting fired to cancel the rest of my stays and fight them over the phone just to get my full refund. And worst of all, my dream of finally getting a pet was completely crushed. The aftermath. The strategic playbook and outrow. After the dust settled, I tried to get a new job as quickly as possible, but I just couldn't do it right away. It took me an extra 3 to 4 months of stressful searching before I finally landed the ice cream plant role and got back to where I started. In this industry, circles are incredibly small. A while back, I was interviewing for a position with a prominent Japanese company and accidentally mentioned this lab because they happened to be a client. Right after that, I was completely ghosted. I'm convinced they called my old team, and those two-faced managers completely trashed my reputation to protect their own egos. Lesson learned. Now, the company does not exist on my resume. It is a complete blackout. If a new position requires that exact type of specialized testing, I bring it up verbally on my own terms. I'll tell them. I have hands-on experience with this exact protocol from a short contract stint at this company. I chose to leave it off my formal resume simply because it was brief, and I wanted to prioritize showing you my long-term positions instead. It completely reframes the narrative. I cannot survive in a company where fake politeness is valued over actual laboratory competence and human honesty. But other than that, that's the story. If you guys want a part 2 where I break down the exact technical chemistry, let me know in the comments. And let me know if you've ever had a two-faced corporate family throw you under the bus. See you in the next one.